The sensor array flickered with patterns that made no sense. Director Haven watched the holographic display in the Council's monitoring station and felt something he had not experienced in his 200 years of service: genuine confusion. 3 patrol ships had entered Sector 794 to investigate an unknown contact. All 3 had vanished. No distress calls, no debris fields, no energy signatures that indicated combat. They simply stopped transmitting and disappeared from every tracking system simultaneously. Haven was a Quinter, a species known throughout the galaxy for their methodical thinking and patience. His people had helped found the Galactic Council 3,000 years ago, back when warfare between species threatened to burn entire worlds. Since then, the Council had maintained peace through diplomacy, mutual prosperity, and the understanding that cooperation benefited everyone more than conflict. Haven believed in this system completely. It had worked for longer than most species had possessed spaceflight, but this situation violated every pattern he understood. The unknown contact remained in the same location, unmoving, exactly where it had first appeared 6 days ago. Council protocols required investigation of any unidentified vessel in their territory, which was why the patrol ships had been sent. Their disappearance triggered emergency procedures. More ships were dispatched. Those vanished too. After the second group failed to report, Haven ordered a complete stop to all investigation attempts until the Council could convene and decide on a proper response. Now, he stood in the Council's grand chamber on their central station, presenting his report to representatives of 12 species. The chamber was designed to inspire awe, with its crystalline walls that displayed the stars beyond and its circular arrangement that gave no species a position of superiority over others. Today, the beauty of the architecture felt hollow. Something was wrong in their peaceful galaxy, and nobody knew what it was. The vessel appears to be human in origin, Haven explained, bringing up what little data they had collected from long-range scans. We have confirmed this through hull markings and energy signatures that match human faster-than-light technology. However, the power readings are far beyond what we believe their civilization capable of producing. Ambassador Rethos, who specialized in human relations, leaned forward with interest. He was one of the few council members who had actually visited Earth and found the young species fascinating. Have the humans been contacted regarding this vessel? Perhaps it is lost or experiencing technical difficulties. We send inquiries through normal diplomatic channels, Haven replied. The human government claims no knowledge of any military vessels operating in Council space. They insist their deep space fleet is confined to their own territory as per our agreements. Either they are lying or this ship is operating without official authorization. Security Chief Paxton slammed his hand on the table. The Dravar were a warrior species who had reluctantly accepted peaceful coexistence centuries ago, and Paxton embodied his people's impatient nature. Unauthorized or not, this vessel has destroyed 6 of our ships. That is an act of war. We should send a full battle group and eliminate the threat. We have no evidence the ships were destroyed, Science Advisor Lena interjected softly. The Ozrim were telepathic and preferred gentle communication, which made Lena's presence calming in tense situations. They vanished. That could indicate many possibilities beyond hostile action. Paxton glared at her but said nothing. The Ozrim were too valuable to the Council for their scientific contributions to alienate over tactical disagreements. Haven continued his briefing. Long-range analysis suggests the human vessel is roughly 400 meters in length, which classifies it as a heavy cruiser by our standards. Its design is unusual, with angular geometry that does not match human aesthetic preferences based on their civilian vessels. The hull appears to be composed of an alloy we cannot identify from this distance. Most concerning is that the ship shows no shield emissions, no active weapon systems, and minimal power signatures. It appears dormant. Could it be a derelict? Someone asked from the back of the chamber. Unlikely. The position is too precise. Derelicts drift. This vessel maintains exact spatial coordinates despite gravitational influences from nearby stellar bodies. Something or someone is controlling it? The Council debated for over an hour. Some advocated for immediate military response. Others suggested attempting communication despite the risk. A few proposed simply quarantining the sector and waiting for the vessel to leave on its own. Finally, Rethos proposed a compromise that gained majority support. "Send me with a diplomatic escort," he said. "I have experience with humans. If this vessel is indeed theirs, perhaps whoever commands it will respond to negotiation rather than force. We show strength by bringing warships but offer peace by sending an ambassador." This approach has resolved countless disputes in Council history. Paxton objected but was overruled. The Council authorized Unity's Voice, their largest diplomatic flagship, to travel to Sector 794 with an escort of 20 warships. It was the largest fleet deployment in over a century, but the situation demanded it. If the human vessel proved hostile, the fleet could defend itself. If it proved willing to talk, Rethos could negotiate a peaceful resolution, having watched the preparations with quiet concern. Something about this situation felt different from the usual border incidents or misunderstandings that occasionally disrupted Council space. The humans were unpredictable, aggressive, and emotional compared to most species, but they had shown no indication of wanting conflict with the Council. Their military was modest, their territory small, their technology inferior in most regards. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 40 years ago, so why did this single human ship, sitting silent in dark and empty space, fill him with such unease? The fleet departed 3 days later. Haven watched them go and hoped Rethos's faith and diplomacy would prove justified. But he also ordered increased monitoring of all human territory and began quietly reviewing the Council's military readiness protocols. Something his ancestors had understood that modern Council members had forgotten. Peace was maintained not by hoping for the best, but by preparing for the worst. The human ship waited in the dark, and soon everyone would understand why. Unity's Voice emerged from faster-than-light travel with 20 warships arranged in protective formation around it. Rethos stood in the observation deck and watched as the human vessel appeared on the main display. Even from this distance, something about it looked wrong. The angles were too sharp, the proportions too aggressive, the color too dark against the stars. It looked nothing like the cheerful, rounded vessels humans used for civilian transport. It looked like something built to kill. "All ships report ready status," the fleet commander announced. "Weapons armed but not locked. Shields at maximum. We are maintaining the requested distance of 50,000 kilometers from the unknown vessel." Rethos nodded. 50,000 kilometers was far enough to react. If the human ship proved hostile but close enough to demonstrate the Council's strength. He activated the communication system and broadcast on all standard frequencies in both Galactic Common Language and English. "Attention, unknown vessel. This is Ambassador Rethos of the Galactic Council. Aboard the flagship Unity's Voice, you are currently in Council-administered space without authorization. We request immediate communication to resolve this situation peacefully. Please respond." Silence stretched for almost a minute. Then a voice came through the speakers, male and tired-sounding, with an accent that suggested someone who had spent too long in space away from their homeworld. "Ambassador Rethos, this is Captain Neil Ward of the human vessel HMS Defiant. I apologize for our intrusion into Council space. That was not our intention. We experienced a navigational error during testing of our new, faster-than-light systems and ended up considerably farther from human territory than planned." Rethos felt relief wash over him. A navigational error was something that could be resolved without conflict. "Captain Ward, we are glad to hear from you. However, we must address a serious concern. 6 of our patrol vessels were sent to investigate your position. All 6 vanished without explanation. Can you provide any information about their fate?" Another pause. When Ward spoke again, his voice carried a note of genuine regret. "The patrol ships approached our position despite our automated warnings. The Defiant's defensive systems interpreted their sensor scans as targeting procedures and initiated protective protocols. The ships were not destroyed. They were displaced to a safe location approximately 2 light-years from here, Your crews are unharmed, though likely very confused. We can provide exact coordinates for recovery. Rithos exchanged glances with the fleet commander. Displaced, not destroyed. That required technology the Council did not possess. The ability to move 6 ships instantaneously across interstellar distances without harming the crews meant the humans had made advances in spatial manipulation that were theoretically possible but practically beyond even the Council's most advanced scientists. That is welcome news. Captain Ward, however, the nature of your defensive systems raises questions about your vessel's capabilities. I propose we meet face-to-face to discuss this situation. Would you be willing to come aboard Unity's Voice? I would, Ambassador. Give me 20 minutes to arrange a shuttle. While they waited, Rithos reviewed everything the Council knew about humanity. They were a young species, barely 40 years into their spacefaring era. Their planet Earth was classified as a high-gravity death world with extreme weather, dangerous predators, and a history of mass extinctions. Humans had evolved to be resilient, aggressive, and paranoid because their homeworld had tried to kill them repeatedly throughout their development. This made them excellent survivors but poor diplomats. The human shuttle arrived exactly 20 minutes later. It was small, functional, and carried minimal weapons. A gesture of good faith. Captain Ward emerged with 2 crew members, both wearing simple, dark blue uniforms that lacked the decorative elements most species favored for formal occasions. Ward himself was perhaps 50 years old by human standards, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much dot in the Council's meeting chamber. Rithos offered traditional hospitality, which Ward accepted politely. Then they got to business. Captain Ward, I must be direct. Your vessel's capabilities concern us. The ability to displace ships across light years and do so as an automated defense mechanism suggests military technology far beyond what we believed humanity possessed. The Council needs to understand what we are dealing with. Ward took a breath and met Rithos's eyes. The HMS Defiant is humanity's first true deep space warship. We built it after our exploration vessels found evidence of an extinct civilization in unclaimed space about 8 light years from Earth. The archaeological data suggested they were wiped out by an unknown aggressor roughly 50,000 years ago. This civilization was more advanced than humanity is now. If something destroyed them, we realized we could be next. Security Chief Paxton, who had insisted on attending this meeting, leaned forward aggressively. So you built a warship capable of displacing Council vessels. That sounds like preparation for conquest, not defense. With respect, Chief Paxton, you are thinking like someone who has lived in peace for thousands of years. Humans do not have that luxury. Earth's history is written in extinction events. Asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, plagues. We almost went extinct a dozen times before we developed civilization. When we reached space and found evidence that entire species could be erased by threats we do not even understand yet, we made a decision. We would never be helpless victims again. Lena spoke softly from her position. So the Defiant was built to fight enemies that do not currently exist? To fight enemies we hope do not exist but fear might, Ward corrected. Every system on this ship was designed to counter theoretical threats. We did not build it to attack the Council. We built it so that if something comes out of the dark that could destroy us, we have a chance to survive. Paxton stood abruptly. I want proof. I want to see what this ship can do. Ward's expression became carefully neutral. I do not think that is wise, Chief Paxton. I think it is necessary. Show us your weapons, Captain. Show us what you think justifies bringing a doomsday ship into our territory. Rithos saw the trapped look in Ward's eyes and realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had asked a cornered animal to show its teeth, and now they were going to learn why humans had survived their brutal homeworld. The Dead System had 3 planets and a scattered asteroid belt orbiting a cooling red dwarf star. No life had ever evolved here, and no species had claimed it due to the lack of valuable resources. It was perfect for what Paxton had demanded, a demonstration of the Defiant's capabilities in a place where nobody would get hurt, Ward had agreed reluctantly. His shuttle returned to the human warship while Unity's voice and its escort fleet positioned themselves 50,000 kilometers away as requested. Rithos watched the Defiant through the observation screens and noticed something that made his skin prickle. The ship was waking up, running lights activated along its hull. Energy readings began climbing. Strange distortions appeared in space around the vessel, like heat shimmer on a hot day but visible against the stars. The Defiant rotated slowly until its bow pointed toward the system's largest moon, a barren rock roughly half the size of Earth's natural satellite. "This is Captain Ward. We will fire one weapon system at minimal power setting. The target is the moon designated Delta 7. All vessels should maintain current distance and ensure shield systems are active as a precaution." Paxton smirked. "Minimal power. The human is trying to save face by not showing us everything. This should be educational." Lena, however, was staring at her sensor readouts with growing alarm. "Ambassador, the energy signature from the human vessel is increasing exponentially. Their reactor output is reaching levels that should not be possible for a ship that size. If they are only preparing to fire at minimal power, what would full power require?" Before Rithos could respond, Ward's voice came through again. "Firing kinetic implosion lance in 3, 2, 1, fire." Nothing visible happened. There was no beam of light, no projectile, no explosion. For a moment, Rithos thought the weapon had malfunctioned. Then the moon began to change. It started at the point where the weapon had presumably struck. The surface simply collapsed inward, not like an explosion crater but like watching water spiral down a drain. Rock, dust, and stone compressed into an increasingly smaller area. The collapse accelerated. Within seconds, the entire moon was folding in on itself, gravitational forces tearing it apart while simultaneously crushing the debris into a tighter and tighter sphere. The sensor alarms screamed warnings about gravitational anomalies. The moon that had been 500 kilometers in diameter was now a sphere less than 100 meters across, spinning rapidly and radiating heat from the compression. Then the gravitational effect dissipated, and what remained was a field of superdense debris where a celestial body had existed moments before. The Council fleet was completely silent. Rithos realized he had stopped breathing. The weapon had not destroyed the moon. It had compressed it, creating a localized gravitational collapse that forced all that mass into a space smaller than some starships. The energy required to manipulate gravity on that scale, the precision needed to contain the effect and prevent it from spreading, the fundamental understanding of physics necessary to even design such a weapon. It was beyond anything the Council possessed. "By the ancestors," Lena whispered. "They weaponized gravitational collapse. That single shot could have hit our flagship and compressed us into a sphere small enough to hold in your hand. Every person aboard, every system, everything we are would be crushed into a mass of superdense matter in less than a second." Paxton had gone pale. Even his aggressive nature could not ignore what they had just witnessed. "That was minimal power?" Ward's voice carried an edge now. "That was minimal power against a stationary, unshielded target with no defensive capabilities. Chief Paxton, you asked for a demonstration. Now you understand what the Defiant was built to fight against. Something powerful enough that conventional weapons would be useless. Something that would require us to bend the laws of physics just to have a chance at survival." Rithos found his voice. "Captain Ward, what you have shown us is terrifying. That weapon alone could destroy any vessel in the known galaxy. Please tell me that is your only system of that nature." The pause before Ward answered told Rithos everything he needed to know. "Ambassador, the kinetic implosion lance is our least destructive primary weapon. It was designed for ship-to-ship combat against armored targets. We have 6 other weapon systems aboard the Defiant, each operating on different principles for different tactical scenarios." "What kind of scenarios?" Rithos heard himself ask, though part of him did not want to know the answer. "The quantum shredder arrays can dismantle atomic bonds, effectively causing matter to come apart at the molecular level. Useful against stations or fortified positions. The causality mines create temporal disruption fields. Time does not flow normally inside them, which makes them effective area denial weapons. We have antimatter torpedo bays for conventional ship combat. We have something called a spatial razor that can cut through shields by slicing space itself. And we have the primary weapon, which we have never test-fired because our theoretical models suggest it could sterilize an entire solar system if used at full power. Lena made a sound that might have been a sob. What species designs weapons to kill solar systems? Ward's answer came quiet and sad. A species that looked at the ruins of extinct civilizations and realized the universe does not care about fairness or mercy. A species that climbed to the top of their world's food chain by learning, one lesson better than any other, prepare for the worst or become another layer in the fossil record. We did not want to build these weapons, Ambassador. We were terrified not to. Rethos looked at the debris field that had been a moon and understood something fundamental about humanity. They were not conquerors or warriors by nature. They were survivors, and survivors did terrible things when they believed their existence was threatened. The question now was what the Council would do with this knowledge. They could not allow weapons like this to spread throughout the galaxy, but they also could not pretend they did not exist. Captain Ward returned to Unity's voice. We need to discuss terms. The Council must convene immediately. The Defiant's running lights dimmed as its weapon systems powered down. But Rethos knew that image of the collapsing moon would haunt Council chambers for generations. Humanity had shown them what fear could create, and it was more dangerous than any empire's ambitions. The emergency council session lasted 18 hours. Representatives from all 12 species argued, debated, and occasionally shouted at each other while Captain Ward waited under guard in a diplomatic suite. Rethos had never seen the council so divided. Some advocated for immediate military action despite the obvious risks. Others wanted to establish trade agreements that would give them access to human technology. A few suggested simply forbidding humans from entering council space ever again and hoping the problem went away. Haven, who had traveled from the central station to join the session, presented the analysis that changed everything. His science team had reviewed every byte of sensor data from the demonstration. Their conclusion was stark and terrifying. The Defiant fired its weapon at what Captain Ward called minimal power. Our estimates suggest the weapon was operating at approximately 2% of its theoretical maximum output. The ship's reactor during the entire engagement never exceeded 30% capacity. This means everything we witnessed, the gravitational collapse, the defensive displacement of our patrol ships, all of it was accomplished with the equivalent of a human using one hand while barely paying attention. The chamber fell silent, having continued relentlessly. If the Defiant was pushed to full combat capacity, our models suggest it could eliminate every military vessel in council space within a matter of days. Not through technological superiority in conventional terms, but through weapon systems that operate on principles we have deliberately avoided, researching because we considered them too dangerous. Humanity in their fear has crossed lines that we drew millennia ago. Paxton stood, his pride clearly wounded but his tactical mind still functioning. Then we must destroy the Defiant before it can become a threat. We gather every available warship, overwhelm their defenses through sheer numbers, and eliminate this danger permanently. We must also demand that humanity surrender all technical data related to these weapons and submit to Council oversight of their military development. That would be an act of war, Rethos said quietly, against a species that has demonstrated they can defend themselves against our entire fleet. How many ships do you believe we would lose in such an attempt, Chief Paxton? How many lives? As many as necessary to ensure galactic security. Lena shook her head. You saw what their defensive systems did to our patrol ships. They were displaced across 2 light years without any harm to the crews. The Defiant could have destroyed those vessels easily, but chose not to. That speaks to restraint, not aggression. If we attack them, we may force them to use their full capabilities in self-defense. The death toll could be catastrophic. The debate raged on until finally the council voted. By a narrow margin, they decided that the Defiant represented an unacceptable risk that could not be tolerated. The ship must be destroyed, its crew detained, and humanity must be compelled to abandon this line of weapons research. Paxton was authorized to use the full military might of the Council to accomplish this objective. Rethos objected strenuously but was overruled. As the ambassador who had initiated contact, he was given the responsibility of informing Captain Ward of the Council's decision. Ward took the news calmly when Rethos visited Suite. Too calmly. He listened to the formal declaration, nodded once, and then asked a single question. Ambassador, do you truly believe your fleet can destroy the Defiant? I do not know, Rethos admitted. But the Council has decided this is a necessary action. Captain Ward, I want you to know that I argued against this. I believe there could have been a diplomatic solution. Ward smiled sadly. I appreciate that, Ambassador. I truly do. But I need you to understand something about humans that your council does not grasp yet. We are very good at survival because we learned one critical lesson early: never let anyone disarm you when you are afraid. The Defiant exists because we are terrified of extinction. If you try to destroy our only guarantee of survival, you will discover exactly how dangerous frightened humans can be. Are you threatening the Council? No, Ambassador. I am trying to save lives. Mine, yours, everyone's. Please evacuate Unity's Voice and the surrounding ships before your fleet makes its attempt. My crew has standing orders. If they detect an attack on my position, if I fail to check in within 30 minutes, or if any hostile action is taken against the Defiant itself, they are authorized to interpret it as an existential threat to humanity and respond with all available force. Rethos felt cold. You would go to war with the entire council over this? We would defend ourselves. There is a difference. Ambassador, my crew does not want to kill anyone, but they will absolutely ensure that the Defiant survives because that ship represents humanity's insurance policy against the universe. You are asking us to give up the one thing that lets us sleep at night, and we will not do that. Not for diplomacy, not for peace, and certainly not at gunpoint. Rethos tried to convince Paxton to evacuate non-essential personnel from Unity's Voice, but the security chief refused. He believed Ward was bluffing and that a show of overwhelming force would make the humans surrender. 20 warships moved into attack formation around the Defiant. The human vessel remained dark and silent. Rethos watched from the observation deck as Paxton gave the order to fire. 20 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously in a coordinated strike designed to overwhelm any defensive system. Plasma beams, kinetic missiles, and energy disruptors converged on the Defiant from multiple vectors. Then something impossible happened. Shimmer appeared around the human ship, like reality itself was bending. Every weapon that struck the barrier simply stopped, frozen in space as if time had halted. For 3 seconds, the projectiles and energy beams hung motionless around the Defiant. Then they reversed direction at twice their original velocity and slammed back into the ships that had fired them. 5 Council warships exploded instantly. 7 more were crippled by their own weapons. The remaining vessels scattered in panic. And the Defiant, previously dark and dormant, came fully alive. Its hull split open in sections, revealing weapon systems that glowed with unnatural light. A new voice broadcast on all frequencies. This is Commander Alice Ruiz of the HMS Defiant. You have attacked this vessel unprovoked. We are now in autonomous defense mode. Return Captain Ward immediately and withdraw your forces, or we will begin systematic elimination of all hostile assets. You have 10 minutes to comply. Rethos looked at the carnage on his displays and realized they had made a terrible, terrible mistake. They had threatened a species that had learned to weaponize their fear, and now they would all pay the price for that arrogance. 6 hours into the standoff, Rethos had aged a decade. The remaining Council warships maintained their distance while he desperately negotiated with Commander Alice Ruiz. She appeared on his screen as a woman, perhaps in her mid-30s. with dark hair pulled back severely and eyes that showed no mercy whatsoever. "Commander, please. We are trying to resolve this peacefully. The Council made a mistake in attacking your vessel. We acknowledge this. But surely you can see that continuing this confrontation benefits nobody. Ambassador Rethos, I appreciate your efforts. Truly, I do. But my orders are clear. Captain Ward must be returned safely, and your fleet must withdraw from this sector. Until both conditions are met, the Defiant will remain in defensive mode. If your ships make any aggressive moves, if Captain Ward is harmed, or if we detect any indication you are preparing another attack, we will respond with lethal force. You cannot fight the entire Council fleet." Ruiz's expression did not change. "With respect, Ambassador, we absolutely can. The Defiant was designed to fight enemies we have not even encountered yet. Your fleet, while impressive by Council standards, does not represent the level of threat this ship was built to counter. I do not say this as a boast. I say it as a fact that should concern everyone involved." Lena, who had been frantically analyzing the data from the brief engagement, confirmed what Ruiz was implying. The defensive barrier the Defiant had used was not a conventional shield. It was a localized temporal distortion field that literally froze incoming attacks in time before releasing them in reverse. The power requirements should have been astronomical, yet the ship's reactor had barely increased output. "They are fighting at a fraction of their capacity," Lena reported to the Emergency Council session. "Everything we have thrown at them, they have countered while operating at what we estimate is less than 40% of maximum power. If they were truly pushed to their limits, the destruction they could cause is beyond our ability to calculate." Paxton, humiliated and desperate, proposed a siege, cut off the Defiant supply lines and wait them out. But nobody knew what the human ship's supply situation was. If they could manipulate time itself, could they extend their supplies indefinitely? Could they create stasis fields for their crew? The variables were unknown. Ward's voice suddenly cut through the debate. His guards had allowed him to access the communication system. "Ambassador Rethos, may I speak with you privately?" They met in a secure room, just the two of them. Ward looked tired but calm. "Ambassador, I have a proposal that might satisfy everyone involved. Will the Council hear me out?" Rethos, desperate for any solution that did not end in massive casualties, agreed immediately. An hour later, Ward stood before the full Council and presented his terms. The Defiant represents something the galaxy has never seen, a weapon system built not for conquest but for survival. You fear what we have created, and that fear is justified. These weapons are terrible. They violate every principle of ethical warfare. But they exist now, and we cannot unmake them? What I propose is a compromise that addresses your security concerns while preserving humanity's right to defend itself. He outlined the agreement carefully. Humanity would commit to never constructing another vessel like the Defiant. The ship would remain in service as the sole example of its kind, but it would operate under strict conditions. It would never enter Council space without explicit permission. It would never engage Council vessels except in self-defense. Most importantly, all technical specifications for the Defiant's weapon systems would be sealed in a time-locked archive that could only be accessed under specific emergency conditions approved by both humanity and the Council. In exchange, the Council would agree to leave humanity alone. No sanctions, no forced disarmament, no interference with human military development within their own territory. Humanity would remain an independent species with the right to defend themselves as they saw fit. "The Defiant is our insurance policy," Ward explained. "It is proof that humanity can never be made extinct by force. As long as this ship exists, any species that contemplates attacking Earth must consider whether the cost is worth it. This is not a threat to the Council. This is a guarantee that humanity will survive whatever the universe throws at us." Haven, who had been silent throughout most of the debate, finally spoke. "Captain Ward, I must ask you a difficult question. Why did you really bring the Defiant into Council space? A navigational error seems unlikely for a vessel this sophisticated." Ward met his gaze steadily. Because we wanted you to know we exist, Director Haven. We found evidence of extinct civilizations in unexplored space. Advanced species that were wiped out by something we still do not understand. If that threat still exists out there, if something terrible enough to justify the Defiant's creation is waiting in the dark, then when it comes, humanity wants allies who understand what we are capable of. The Defiant was not built to threaten you. It was built to protect you, whether you want that protection or not. The Council deliberated for another 4 hours. The vote was not unanimous, but it passed. They would accept Ward's terms rather than risk a war they could not win. Paxton abstained from voting, his pride too wounded to support the decision but his tactical sense preventing him from opposing it. Rethos personally escorted Ward back to his shuttle. Before the captain departed, the ambassador asked one final question that had been bothering him. Captain Ward, what do you think is out there? What made you so afraid that you built a ship like the Defiant? Ward paused at the shuttle door and looked back. Honestly, Ambassador? I hope we never find out. But hope is not a survival strategy. Preparation is. The shuttle launched and returned to the Defiant. The human warship's weapons systems powered down, and it began moving away from Council space at a leisurely pace. Rethos watched it go and wondered if they had just made peace with humanity or simply postponed a reckoning. Either way, the galaxy had changed. Humanity had shown them what fear could build, and that knowledge would reshape interstellar politics for generations to come. 3 months after what the Council officially recorded as the Defiant Incident, Rethos attended the most significant legislative session in 3,000 years of galactic governance. The chamber was packed with representatives, observers, and security personnel. What they were about to vote on would reshape the legal framework of the entire galaxy. The Forbiddance Weapons Accord was unlike any legislation the Council had ever considered. It banned specific technologies not because they had been used in warfare, but because their mere existence threatened galactic stability. Temporal manipulation devices, gravitational compression weapons, quantum disassembly technology, causality disruption systems, spatial geometry weapons. All of it forbidden to research, develop, or deploy by any Council species. Humanity was grandfathered in as the sole exception. The HMS Defiant could continue to exist under the terms Captain Ward had negotiated. But any other species that attempted to replicate its weapons would face immediate sanctions and potential military intervention. It was an unusual law that essentially acknowledged humanity had won a race the Council had refused to even enter. The vote passed by a wide margin. Most species agreed that preventing an arms race was worth the slight to their pride. A few abstained, unwilling to officially recognize human superiority in this area. None voted against it. They had all seen the sensor recordings of what the Defiant could do. Rethos had mixed feelings as he cast his vote in favor. They were preventing catastrophe, yes. But they were also creating something unprecedented, a species with a technological advantage. That could not be challenged legally or practically. Humanity was now the galaxy's unofficial enforcer. Whether anyone wanted them to be or not, the effects rippled through galactic politics almost immediately. Smaller species that had feared being absorbed by larger empires suddenly found themselves with unexpected leverage. If the great powers pushed too hard in their expansion efforts, the humans and their terrible ship might take notice. It was not an official alliance, but it was a deterrent that shifted the balance of power. Rethos received regular intelligence reports on the Defiant's activities. The ship had left Council space as agreed but had not returned to human territory. Instead, it was conducting systematic exploration of unclaimed regions beyond the galactic rim. The crew was searching for something, though they refused to specify what. Captain Ward, when contacted through diplomatic channels, would only say they were investigating anomalies that might explain what happened to the extinct civilizations humanity had discovered. 4 months after the incident, Rethos received an unusual message. It was from Commander Ruiz, the woman who had threatened to systematically eliminate Council assets during the standoff. She was requesting a private conversation on a secure channel. Curious, Rethos agreed. Ruiz appeared on his screen, looking more tired than she had during the crisis. Ambassador Rethos, I wanted to reach out personally to apologize for the harshness of my words during the confrontation. I know I scared a lot of people. That was not my intention, but my orders required me to protect the ship and crew at any cost. I understand, Commander. You were in an impossible situation. I also wanted you to understand something about the Defiant that Captain Ward did not explain. This ship is not just a weapon. It is our promise to every human who looks up at the stars and wonders if we will survive out here. My grandparents lived through the asteroid scare of 2089, when we thought Earth might be hit by an extinction-level impact. They survived, but that fear never left them. They passed it to my parents, who passed it to me. The Defiant exists because we cannot forget how close we came to ending. Rethos thought about his own species' history. The Quinter had never faced extinction. They had evolved on a peaceful world and reached the stars through cooperation. The idea of being so afraid that you would build doomsday weapons was almost incomprehensible to him. Do you ever regret building it? He asked. Ruiz considered the question carefully. Every day, but I regret the alternative more. If something comes for us, if there really is a threat out there that destroyed civilizations more advanced than ours, I want to be ready. I want to look it in the face and say, not us, not humanity. We refused to go quietly. The conversation stayed with Rethos long after it ended. He began to understand that the Defiant was not just a warship. It was a monument to survival, a declaration that humanity would endure no matter what the universe threw at them 6 months after the incident. Everything changed. The Council's Deep Space Observatory network detected anomalous energy signatures in a region of space that was supposed to be empty. The patterns matched nothing in any database. Whatever was producing those signals was massive, powerful, and moving. The trajectory suggested it was approaching Council space from beyond the galactic rim, from the same direction the Defiant had been exploring. Rethos reviewed the data 3 times before accepting what it implied. Something was out there, something that might be exactly what humanity had feared. He opened a secure channel to the HMS Defiant, hoping the human ship was close enough to receive the message in real time. Captain Ward's face appeared on the screen within minutes. Captain Ward, we may have a problem. Ward did not look surprised. We detected the same anomalies 2 weeks ago, Ambassador. We have been moving to intercept and gather more data. Whatever these signals represent, they are unlike anything in our databases or yours. They could be natural phenomena we do not understand, or they could be something else. Something like what destroyed those extinct civilizations. That is what we intend to find out. This is what the Defiant was built for, Ambassador. This is why we crossed all those ethical lines and built weapons that terrified you. Because we knew deep in our bones that the universe was not finished testing us. Rethos made a decision he never thought he would make. Captain, the Council is authorizing the Defiant to investigate these anomalies as our representative. We are transmitting all sensor data we have collected. If you need support, we can provide it. Ward smiled grimly. Keep your ships close to home, Ambassador. If whatever is out there requires the Defiant's full capabilities to handle, you do not want your people anywhere near the engagement zone. We will investigate and report back. Humanity has been preparing for this possibility since the day we built this ship. The transmission ended. Rethos watched his sensors track the Defiant as it accelerated toward the unknown signals. The ship that had terrified the Council, the Forbidden's guardian they had tried to destroy, was now sailing into danger on behalf of the entire galaxy. Somewhere in the deep dark, something waited. And for the first time in 3,000 years of peace, the Council was glad that humanity had learned to weaponize their fear. Because when the universe finally showed them what was really out there, the Defiant would be the first line of defense, not because humans wanted to be heroes, but because they refused to be victims ever again.